start to think about when we get back into inequalities, because we just took a test on equations. Equation means you have an equal sign there. And whatever's on one side of the equal sign has got to equal the same value as what's on the other side of the equal sign. And that's it. And unless you have a fancy no solution, whatever, there's usually one answer, right? X equals 8, X equals 2, X equals whatever, okay? But we're done with equations for right now, and we're focusing on these next couple tests, inequalities. Okay? An inequality means it's not equal to something, which means if it's not exactly the same as something, by default, it's either got to be more than it or less than it, right? So these are the symbols that we are now going to be working with. And we had a little taste of these at the beginning of the year where I asked you to kind of describe these inequalities, right? So let's just kind of refresh our memory. What do these ones mean right here when they're pointing to the left and it looks like an L? It would be what? These are the less than ones. Okay? Somebody grab that door, please, and just shut it. And the ones that are pointing to the right, every single time you will say greater than, right? Okay, we did this lesson already. And then what does the little line underneath it mean? It kind of looks like a half an equal sign. So that would mean what, Riley? Or equal to. Okay? So this means less than or equal to. Greater than or equal to. And we know those, right? Okay. So we're going to start moving into, we've already described written inequalities. So if I were to say you're going to Cedar Point, you have to be at least 54 inches to ride the Millennium Force. That was the beginning of the year. And I said, hey, write me an inequality. Maybe use H for height. Use one of these four and write the inequality. We've done that, right? So hopefully that you are recognizing the words at least are your keywords. But be careful because least makes you think, oh, less than. But it's actually not. Because 54 is the shortest you can be, right? So hopefully you know that your height has to be what? Greater than or equal to 54. You with me? Okay. We already did that. You're not going to have to do that again. I'm just going to come right out and give these to you. But let's say I'm going to add, so this is the inequality. The second thing I'm going to ask you to do is give me a list of numbers then of possible heights that you could be. Okay? And when you do your list, you use this little fancy symbol that's very hard to do, so you have to do it fast. It's called a brace. And anytime you see a brace like that, it means I'm about to give you a set of numbers. Okay? And what is this set of numbers going to represent that I'm about to list? Oh, the possible heights. Okay? So, the first question, and we're always going to list whole numbers. Because I know you can be 54 inches, and I know you can be 54 inches and a half, and 54 inches and a third. We're going to list whole numbers. My question is, can I start with 54 if I were to list these numbers? Yes. If you are 54 inches tall, you can go on the ride. If you are 53 inches and 0.9 inches, you can't. Okay, you have to be at least 54. And then 55, and then 56, and ... means keep going forever and ever. And then you draw your little brace. I got a little extra thing up at the top there. Okay, does that list make sense to you? 54, 55, 56. All right, and this is the next newest thing. And this is going to be the most important thing. This is the main part of today's practice work is going to be the number line. So let's say, when you go to Cedar Point, in front of each ride, there is a sign that says, you must be at least this height to get on this ride. Or there's that red and white pole that you got to stand up to. When you were a kid, you used to go on your tippy toes so you could try to get on, right? Okay, well, let's say Cedar Point decides to focus on math one week. And instead of coming out and telling you, they just wrote a number line. And the number line signified the heights that you could be. So watch what this means. So whatever number is in question, that's the number that I'm going to put on my number line. And what I'm about to ask you to do next seems really, really simple, but at least one kid per hour had it backwards. Where is 0 compared to 54? Evan?
To the left.
It's to the left of it, okay? I'm not going by scale. I'm just going to kind of put a little point of reference that, okay, 54 is off to the right. And you'd be amazed at how many kids get this backwards, too. Somebody walks up to you on the street and says, hey, what number is immediately to the left of 54 on a number line? Is it 53 or 55? You got to kind of stop and think a minute. 53, right? Because 53 comes before 54 and 55 comes after it. And man, that 0 being there really kind of helped me because I started here and I just kind of moved that way. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is then put a big old circle on the point in question here. And then I ask myself, can I be 54 inches and still get on the Millennium Force? Yes. So what should I do with that circle to represent that? I'm going to color it in. And we're going to call this a closed circle. So when your circle is colored in, it's a closed circle. And what does a closed circle mean? It means this is the symbol you use for less than or equal or greater than or equal. Meaning, if there is a solid line underneath, then that better be a solid colored circle. Do you understand? So I have to, in some way, recognize that it starts and it is 54. So then the last thing I'm about to do is take an arrow and shade to the left of 54 or to the right of 54. Well, where are these numbers greater than 54? Left or right? Right. So, I mean, you can come up above it. Sometimes you'll see it right on the number line. Up and above is fine too. So, if you were to go to Cedar Point and the only thing that was there in front of the rides was this, would you be able to tell whether or not you could get on that ride? So if you measured yourself before you left the house and you know you were 52 inches, you would walk up there and you go, oh, bummer. My height is not in the solution set, so I can't go. Or if you knew you were 57 inches tall, you would go, sweet, and you would get in line. Okay? So this is just another way of saying that. Understand? Okay. So let's try another one. Now, just like there are maximum heights or a minimum heights that you can be, there are also maximum heights. Does anybody remember as a kid? Oh, it's like my favorite memories as like a child and as an adult riding the junior Gemini. Do you remember the junior Gemini at Cedar Point? Like, I don't know. I'm a Cedar Point family. Like, we used to go every year. We used to get a van, and my parents would let us each bring friends. So that was like my childhood growing up. So junior Gemini, there's pictures of me and my brother with our hands up. And now as an adult, you're like, oh my God, it's so small. So to go on the junior Gemini, you can't be like 7 foot tall. It's for the little ones, right? Or when you go to McDonald's, right? When you go to McDonald's and there's that playland, it'll say what? The maximum height you can be and still play in this jungle gym is 40 inches too tall or whatever, okay? So in order to go on the junior Gemini, yeah, you can be, I don't even know if I'm talking, how do you spell Gemini? I think for the Cedar Point ride it says, oh well, point taken. You can be at most, actually, I don't want to do the at most. No, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of how did we do that in the other one? No more than, no, erase this. You must be, because I'm trying to think of one that, under 42 inches. So if you want to go, unless you're a parent accompanying your child. If you want to go on the junior Gemini, you must be under 42 inches. So the first thing I would do is take a look at the height restrictions. Which one of these 4 shows under? That's okay. Your height has to be under, more than or less than. It has to be less than. According to this, can you be 40 inches and still go? 42 inches? No. Your height has to be less than 42 inches, which means when I go to write my list, can I start with 42 this time? No. And I know if you're 41.9, blah, blah, blah. We're sticking to whole numbers. So what is actually the first height that would work in our list? 41, 40, 39, ... and so on. Okay? But the most important thing I want to know if you can do is this. Where is 0? Still over here. What number's to the left of 42 and to the right? It's just point of reference. I'm going to circle 42. Do I color it in? No. Now let me show you then. I had somebody say, if you don't color it in, then why don't you just start at 41, Ms. Z? And what answer did I have for them? Is there a number that is less than 42, but greater than 41? Sure, it's all these numbers right in here. So I know I'm talking about for height, we're keeping it whole numbers, but if I were to start at 41 instead of 42, I'd be forgetting about 41.5 and 41.7 and all those numbers, and I can't do that, okay? So how do I then show that it can't be 42? I just don't what? I just don't color it in, okay? So when we don't color a circle in, it's obviously not a closed circle. We call it an open circle. And which symbols do we use an open circle for? This one or this one? If there's no line underneath, then it can't include those numbers, so don't color it in. And the very last thing I have to decide is which direction am I making that arrow go? Where are the numbers less than 42 on this number line? To the left. Okay, come on up. And there you go. Okay, easy enough? All right, now we have to talk about this here. So the temperature, you know when it gets cold outside, you know when they start canceling school, when the polar vortex comes upon us. Okay, you know that by law there's a temperature that I think they have to cancel school at. Do you know what that temperature is? I know it like the back of my hand because I check it every night in January. -20 with the wind chill. If it is -20 or lower with the wind chill, school should be canceled. That's why like every night in January I'm like checking the weather. Yep. Yeah, no. But okay, so we are going to say that school is canceled if the temperature is 20 degrees below or colder. Okay? What inequality would that represent? I used H for height. Let's use T for temperature. So write in inequality to represent that school is canceled if the temperature for the wind chill is 20 below or colder. Which one of these 4 symbols would I need? 20 degrees or colder means if the temperature falls less than or equal to -20, then we sleep in, right? So that seems pretty easy. Let's write our list now. So what's the first number that earns us a day off of school? Yes. If it is 19 below, put your hats and your mittens on. You're coming to school. Boo, right? Now, what number comes next? Christopher.
-21.
Thank you. -21, not 19. Because when you're doing temperatures in the negatives, you have to really know your number line and know that I'm getting farther away from 0 into negative land. So that is my set of temperatures. But the most important part is, what will that look like on a number line. Where is 0 now, Ben? Now it's over here somewhere. Which means then, and this is, sometimes kids have a really hard time labeling those. You really kind of have to stop and think a minute. So if I'm coming from 0, what number comes just before negative 20? Negative 19, and then negative 21. It's just helpful to know that. So I'm going to put my circle at 20. If the temperature hits 20 below, do we get that call? Yup. So I'm going to do what with the circle? Color it in. You know why? Because of that right there. Purple and purple. If there's a solid line here, make it a solid circle. And where are the temperatures colder than 20 below? To the left. All right. That is the basic. Okay, and then there's always one little catch to it, because that actually wasn't too bad, right? So the most important thing that we need to talk about now, because I really feel like you guys got that, you need to know 2 things. Open or closed, shade left or right. Those 2 things, okay? So every now and then, you will see an inequality written like this. And it's almost like when you have an equation that's written this way. We're not used to seeing that x on the right. We like it when the x is on the left. It's just the way that our teachers taught us. It's the way by instinct we're just more comfortable with. So this kind of seems backwards to me, okay? So you have 2 options at this point. Because when the variable is not written first, I guarantee you, every single year, I have kids do this, and they don't even think about it. They see a greater than symbol. They see this, and then they do that, and then they're wrong, and they wonder why. Because if 8 is greater than or equal to G, then that must mean that G is really what? Less than or equal to 8. Oh, shoot, that doesn't match it now. So the most important thing you can think about is this. This symbol does not always mean go this way. That doesn't always mean greater than in this case. So what I would recommend is one of 2 things. You get to decide. You have to read the inequality starting with the variable. Don't read it 8 is greater than or equal to G. Start with G and read it backwards. So G is, when you see the nose, it means less than, the mouth means greater than. G is actually less than or equal to 8. That's the first way. Just read it. The second way is write it with the variable on the left so that you are not confused. And here's how you do that. If the nose is pointing to the G, when you flip it around, it had still better be pointing to the G. Got it? So somebody said once, oh, look at all the examples we've done. Whatever this thing is here, all you got to do is make an arrow out of it, Mrs. Z, and take this arrow and it goes to the right. And I went, oh yeah, hey, it worked for this one too. Less than meant point to the left. Less than meant point to the left until this happens. So if you are not paying attention and your variable is not on the left, you're going to have all of these problems shaded the wrong way. And then you're going to have to do a redo. So does this make sense? So you are looking for your variable to be on the left, and if it's not, then rewrite it so that it is, or read it from the variable. Okay? So I want you to try this. Actually, let's do this. 3, 4. Because there's 2 parts to this lesson. One, I'm going to give you the inequality and ask you to graph it. And part 2 is go backwards. Here is the graph. Write the inequality that goes with it. So instead of being given the inequality, you have to come up with it. So what does this graph represent? All numbers that are what? Greater than 3. You need to be able to give me this based on that. Okay? How about this one? Assume it's halfway. So what inequality would match that graph? X would have to be what, Ben?
Greater than or less than or equal to
I know, it's hard. Negative. Yep, less than or equal to negative 5.5. There are some kids whose brain just kind of works the other way around. And I don't get it because they'll put the X here and they'll do it this way. Is that right?
Yeah.
Am I gonna mark it wrong? Nope. If your brain works that way, go for it. Okay? So literally all you're doing to start practicing this next standard is you're looking, and if the graph is there, give the inequality, and if the inequality is there, graph it. Understand? Okay, pretty simple.